Welcome everyone. We're here at the Enactor stand at NRF. I've got with me a very, very special guest. I'm Jules Carrell, Head of Sales at Enactor. It's not me, it's Rory here. Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Sure thing. Thanks for having me on. Rory Dennis from Amplience, also on the board of the MACH Alliance, which we're about to get into. And thank you all for coming along to listen.
Rory, please tell us, what is MACH? What is the MACH Alliance? Where has this thing come from? And why on earth should we be interested?
And where is it going, I guess? Yeah, well, thanks. So, MACH Alliance, so MACH stands for microservices, API first, cloud native, and headless. And the MACH Alliance was brought together by 5 companies who wanted to educate the market about the shift away from monolithic technology that's happening and into this new world where you can free yourself from the monolith. You can deploy microservices as discrete microservices, and you can take all the benefits of cloud native and headlessness and have a new way to build your business in technology and not have your business be a slave to a stack that you are on.
How did you get together with competitors or people who weren't in your space? How did that happen?
Yeah, actually, like all good things, it happened in a bar. It happened in a bar in Amsterdam.
Nice. Yeah.
Over some drinks, and just a notion that some of the folks at Commerce Tools, at Content Stack, at EPAM, at Valtech had that said, look, we need to find a way to educate the market that there's this new way of being in a new technology sector, and to kind of find a way that say, look, it doesn't really matter if we're competitive or cooperative, but we should educate the market that this is now available, because I think technology had gone through a bit of a down cycle where people were disappointed with the monoliths that they bought, they were disappointed with the capability that they were getting, they were disappointed with waiting for upgrades and being at the behest of their software vendor. So that was really the origins of it.
Obviously now at Enactor, we're members now. Obviously we've been on board about a year, but it seems like it's going really well and the kind of thing's growing and growing, right?
It's going great. I mean, we're up just over 18 months, quite almost 50 member companies, which is amazing, ahead of expectation. You'll have seen this morning there was an announcement that AWS has come on in the enabler category, which is great to see. So we didn't expect this level, I guess, in just 18 months. We're delighted with it. We have many more applications coming. We kind of take the applications in cohorts and try and get through them as quickly as we can. But yeah, it's growing, and it's really good to see it.
We're here at NRF, clearly a retail show, and we're thinking to ourselves, well, what are the challenges, forgetting Mac and all those things, what are the kind of challenges that, retailers are facing right now? And then that obviously leads on to how Mac is kind of relevant. I think that's why it's a cool conversation between you and myself. I mean, I've spent, nearly a decade now, basically going and meeting retailers, mainly focused on what they're doing in store, but clearly as the world has blended and, on merging of online and in-store has happened, then clearly a whole bunch of solutions have come around, then more challenges come around, then you've got the pandemic and it's torpedoed things. Like, what are the kind of issues that you think retailers are seeing right now and things that maybe Mac is trying to address, although we'll move that to that in a second. But from your perspective, what do you think is happening?
Crazy things happening out there, all right. You hear, obviously, the pandemic, right, has drove so many businesses overnight to being from maybe 70-30 physical electronic to 100% e-commerce businesses overnight.
Right.
One of the huge problems, of course, is that a lot of businesses were not ready for this. They didn't have the teams, didn't have the technical capability, didn't have the ability to quickly grow to being a 100% e-commerce focused business. So that was a challenge, probably the biggest one we've seen in 2 years. But there are other challenges out there for retailers. Probably one that we see the most is that the customer journey has completely dissected from where it was. It used to be a kind of linear journey that you'd put some marketing into channel, it would bring you to a kind of a pre-built website, and you'd follow some kind of funnel journey to your endpoint, which was a transaction. That has completely come apart.
Right.
So the new digital journey starts anywhere and continues anywhere, and so that channel kind of disruption that the retailer is facing, the fight for traffic, the fight for attention, the diversification of channels in which you get your engagement in, this is a huge problem.
stores are coming back online. People are starting to go back to the stores and thinking, well, hold on, like, we need different types of solutions in these stores, but also mainly what we're seeing is that people recognize they need a different way of working with driving solutions to those stores. They see that they've been able to bring on these fantastic things in their online space, different services, individual best of breed products, even being able to bring that into the online space and thinking, well, hold on, how can we actually drive that to our stores? And not only that, how can I have a kind of culture in my business where I can continually do that so things can continue to be adopted? I'd say that's probably the biggest common denominator I've seen, whether it's 100 store chains in Europe, whether it's 1,000 store chains in Asia, whether it's grocery, whether it's department stores, whatever it's fashion, whatever. I think from my perspective, what we're seeing is that the empowerment of these businesses to drive these things much faster, much more immersive, is probably the biggest challenge and probably the biggest thing that's kind of underpinning like how they're going to take on those challenges sort of in the future.
Well, it is that, of course. It's the need for speed, right? Which it's called MACH for a reason, right? It's MACH. It's the need for
not
speed.
Not just a Gillette product, right?
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to promise, is that, look, there's a new world. You can do things quickly. You can test and fail. You can test and be successful. You can bring new things to market. It doesn't have to involve the entire organization. You do quick, agile initiatives and work in a different way. I guess that's what we're saying is the solution.
I think also we can't ignore the sort of what you may say macro or exogenous shocks out there. I know that it's definitely the case in the UK, probably well publicized, but I hear it's the same in the US. Shortage of staff, shortage of supply chain disruption. The sort of microchip shortage and stuff like that. That's creating disruption, and for retailers, that's making it difficult to support journeys and to support things in stores, and of course they've got to be reactive to that, right? And come up with solutions to these types of problems.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing in our traditional, say, if you take a traditional retailer, digital retailer, they're now making smaller, diverse teams that are tackling discrete initiatives that they want to achieve.
We believe MACH is the answer.
We believe MACH is the answer.
One of the answers.
One of the answers.
Sure.
Change management, organizational restructure.
I think that's cool.
Truly being digital first and thinking digital first. Those are things that, if you're not willing to do those things, no technology is going to help you. So You just have to change your mindset to modern approaches. If you do that and you're willing to go on that path, then this MACH Alliance and this MACH tech stack will really help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing. We signed a customer in October. They're a Swedish customer, and that was all about them actually reorganizing and it does take that restructure in order to make things work, right? You can't take old teams, you can't take old structures, even old skills into this kind of new world. Like, I know we're going to talk a bit about it at the end, but how have you seen that work well and sort of fail in the past?
I think one of the big things we saw, if you went back like 4 or 5 years ago, there was a shift to get a chief digital officer into the business.
Right.
But then the chief digital officer didn't really have any power. It was just it was a hire that companies thought, we should have a chief digital officer because we're beginning to think digital first. And then there was a couple of kind of 2-year period where no one really knew what the chief digital officer did. But I think what's happened now is this chief digital officer is back, but empowered. And so that empowerment is coming from the C-suite, and they're saying, look, if we really want to be digital, be native and digital first, we need to structure our teams in these new ways. We need to use agile methodologies, and we need to do more of the new stuff, less of the old stuff, and just change our core working model. So that's, I think, the biggest thing I've seen is the empowerment of digital teams, where before they might have been pushed off to the side or not the main event.
And how have you seen the effectiveness of these teams affected by even things like the pandemic and remote working and all that sort of stuff? Has that helped, or is it inhibited? Or because obviously as a software company, we're always in Enactor, we're always thinking, well, how can we have our teams better collaborate? And often it's remote, but often a lot of things is kind of in person. How do you find the balance? And do you think those people who have maybe just gone on that journey of bringing more things in house and doing more things themselves, they're now all of a sudden thinking, Christ, I'm not really a software company, but now I'm doing more things myself, and all of a sudden I've got to try and come up with some challenges of structuring that. Like, how's that gone, do you think?
Everyone's different. I think even the people working in teams, some people are comfortable working remotely, others aren't. But if you're in charge of that team, you have to be responsive to. You have to understand or pick up on people who like to work remotely, who don't. Do they have the tools? Do they have the a hybrid meeting? Are people able to hear you? So it's kind of it's for each manager to have to to work out can we actually work in this way,
And I don't know it. Clearly, in the store space, we were disrupted, but in the sort of the online and the e-com space,
Yeah.
I mean, did that desire for those guys who maybe had already gone down their Mac journey and got their structures in place and had everything structured well, was the demand for change accelerating? Kind of like, guys, we've got to be. Presumably, yes, right?
Yeah,
Presumably,
100%. It's the demand for change or the need for change, right? People, business models were outdated. People were getting usurped by new D2C businesses that you can stand up much quicker because of technology. Barriers to entry fall. You can get things moving much more quickly. So it all kind of came to a head. It was come to a head anyway, and then I think that the COVID era just accelerated the whole thing.
It's definitely interesting in kind of in sort of an active space and our client base in terms of how we can bring those Mac principles but into the kind of store environment, because the store environment does create a set of kind of really unique challenges in terms of how we drive applications which are generally still relevant and bring in new innovations and new components in a kind of a Mac way. It is a different type of challenge than online, right? I mean,
it is. I just did my first mobile checkout or walkout checkout at the airport on Friday. Just sensors in the ceiling, so walk out with my product. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of sort of frictionless checkout, and we're constantly thinking, how can we use the MAC principles to kind of accelerate that checkout experience? It's not going to be for all retailers. It's not going to be for necessarily furniture maybe, or for for certain types of format. But at the same time, you still want to remove that frictions. You still want to drive the right kind of experience for
if you make it, if you make it right and you make it usable for people, then they'll adopt it.
Absolutely,
that's it.
Absolutely. That's kind of thing that we've been really looking for, trying to enable new business models which allows the reader to add those kind of features and functions, but into this kind of store world. And actually, you might have thought originally that maybe the MAC principles might have only been useful in that e-commerce world, but actually, we think that we're genuinely seeing all of the real power of that in store as well, and it's going to have just as much relevance in the store, in the kind of store, in the store space, and that still billions and trillions of all kind of retail transactions are taking place in store. So we want to try and really drive those principles in store by, for example, allowing retailers to deploy their own React components, something we're doing with our customers, onto point of sale and onto point of sale applications, so that they can continually evolve part of that application with their own web developers. And that's purely based on MAC principles, based on driving lightweight front-end applications and using APIs that either we provide or other people provide. And that's how they're starting to get that kind of tempo or that kind of cadence, that kind of word that we use in Enactor jokingly sometimes, on the front end. And we generally believe that is the future to drive functionality into complex store environments. That's pretty cool.
What he said.
Yeah. So, but is a Mac architecture always right? And how would you know? What are the kind of markers around it being right for your business, do you think?
Definitely not always right. No, it's about a maturity model, really. Is your business capable of adopting this? And you have to ask yourself that. People will help you with that. Vendors will help you with that. Agencies will help you with that, or your own internal teams. That are we ready for it? It is an undertaking.
Sure.
It's not a magic sponge you can just wash over and adopt it. But if you answer yourself honestly, if you're mature enough to take it on, definitely go for it. But it's not for everyone, and it has to be approached in the right way.
Presumably, I mean, I think one thing we've seen is that if you've got a whole load of monolithic applications in your kind of world, you really can't go from zero to fully Mac everywhere at once, right? That's just not a reasonable response.
Yeah, and I think that era of big drop is over as well, right? A big cut over. Yeah. It's just discrete projects, and we take little pieces over time to get to where we're going.
Yes. This is kind of new way. I mean, obviously that's kind of what we're seeing, and that means incremental training of certain teams and bringing in certain skills to the organisation as well, and maybe realising that this could be a 2, 3, 4 year thing to get from A to B, or even to A to Z, but you got a whole load of stages.
Well, I think it'll just be continuous for that, and that's the change that you're making.
True,
it's just continuous. We're gonna keep improving week on week. That's the new model.
So how does a retailer kind of get started? Who do they contact? Do they contact the kind of, like the E2X guys and they start putting all together, consulting? Do they reach out to vendors? Do they drive things internally?
Great question.
How do things go?
What we're trying to do on the Alliance is to have a resource center so that people can educate themselves about what MACH is offering. B, they can find connections to the companies that are involved. There are articles, there is a podcast, there are brochures, there are case studies that you can read. Core part of the MACH Alliance is about having ambassadors, and the ambassadors on the MACH Alliance are non-vendors. They're all practitioners who've deployed MACH principles into their business. So what we wanted to be able to do is to show, look, this is not new anymore. Loads of successful outcomes and projects have happened using these technologies, and these people are here talking about them. So you can connect with an ambassador on there, and you can get literature, and you can just MACH Alliance will connect you with the right folk.
Cool. There you go. Thank you for joining us on our stand.
Well, thanks
we really
for having me.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for putting the fire on.
That's right. Well, we need it. It's bloody freezing here, right?